speaking of the midterms, let's turn now to our Meet the Candidates series. Earlier this year, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, the #2 Democrat in the Senate, announced he would not seek re-election after almost 3 decades in the Senate, setting off a competitive primary race to succeed him in what has been a reliably blue seat. This is a crowded field, to say the least. More than a dozen candidates jumping into the primary, including 2 current members of Congress and Illinois' Lieutenant Governor, Juliana Stratton. Since launching her campaign, Lieutenant Governor Stratton has secured the endorsements of the Governor, Pritzker, and Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth. Joining me now is the aforementioned Lieutenant Governor of Illinois and Democratic candidate for Senate, Juliana Stratton. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for joining us. You are facing, as we said, a very crowded primary field with more than a dozen candidates, 2 members of Congress. What does your specific path to the nomination and the general election win look like?
Well, the path to success in this March 17th primary for me looks like continuing to talk to the people of Illinois, listen to the people of Illinois, and then making sure that they are reminded that for the past 7 years as Lieutenant Governor and even as a state representative before then, I have always delivered big things for the people of Illinois. I know how to fight for them. And Illinois really is the blueprint for the kind of leadership we need in Washington, D.C. So whether it's raising the minimum wage, whether it is protecting women's reproductive freedom, creating thousands of jobs, and expanding access to opportunity to the middle class, those are things that I have delivered on as Lieutenant Governor. And I look forward to bringing that same exact kind of leadership and fight to Washington.
You've used the word fight twice there. The Pritzker administration, I feel like the administration you're a part of there in Illinois has kind of made that their calling card, that you guys want to go head-to-head with the Trump administration every day. Is that the style of leadership or style of senator we should expect to see you be in Washington?
Yes, because that's what people are looking for. You know, look, what I hear when I'm traveling the state of Illinois and talking to voters is that they are tired of the status quo in Washington, D.C. They do not want their leaders to be sort of, let's go along to get along and just give basic talking points. They want authenticity. They want bold, effective leadership. They want people who have new ideas and new perspectives who are going to come to Washington and kind of really understand the urgency of this moment and meet that moment. I can tell you that more than anything else, people don't, when I ask them what are they looking for, they don't always mention a policy. What they say is, I'm looking for someone who will go to the mat fighting for me, and that's the kind of leadership that I will provide. Governor Pritzker and I have shown over these last 7 years what happens when you stand up to a wannabe dictator like Donald Trump. And whether it's taking him to court or speaking out, whether it's the ICE or National Guard, over and over again, we have demonstrated what happens when you stand up and fight, and that's the kind of leadership I will bring.
Does that mentality preclude working with Republicans on a bipartisan basis? Are there issues in which you could see yourself working with, particularly if there's a Republican majority in the Senate you join, on issues?
Well, look, my background is not just as an attorney, but for 2 decades of my career, I was a mediator, and my job was to bring people to the table and solve problems. When I became a state representative in the Illinois General Assembly, I passed 10 bills and got signed into law by a Republican governor. Every single bill was passed on a bipartisan basis, most of them unanimously. So I know how to get things done. But here's the deal. What we are seeing coming out of Washington right now, the chaos of the Trump administration that is harming so many families, we need real fighters. We need somebody who, of course, will do whatever they can to try to get things done for the people we represent. But we also need people who are going to think boldly. And that's what I want to do. I mean, affordability is an issue for so many families. Donald Trump said that he was going to lower prices on day one. It's only gotten worse for families. I want to raise the minimum wage. And I can tell you, we raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour here in Illinois. And I'm very proud of that fact. But when I look at what $15 an hour means for families, as I've been talking to folks, that's about $31,000 a year. That's not enough to take care of your family and to pay your bills. I would like to see a $25 an hour minimum wage at the federal level so that everyone can have what they need to thrive. And I also want to protect our rights and our democracy and expand access to the middle class. Those are things that I will lead on, and I will work with anyone who has those same values to make sure that we uplift all Americans.
You will work with anyone, but I've noted that you've said you do not want to work with Chuck Schumer as leader of the Democratic Party. You said you think it should be someone else who leads the Democrats. Looking at the roster now, who should be the next Democratic leader?
Well, look, I think the main principle is that what I want to see is somebody who is going to fight. I go back to that same word we just talked about. We have had so many opportunities as Democrats to demonstrate who we are and the values that we stand for. We've had so many opportunities where we were close to winning, and we just needed to remind people what it is that Democrats bring to the table. And you know what Democrats do? We're the party that is fighting to make sure people have access to health care. We're the party that is making sure we protect voting rights and reproductive rights. We're the party that wants to make sure there is access to people to be able to get affordable housing and so many other things for them to thrive. We want to raise the minimum wage or see Medicare for all, as I want to see. Those are the things that we are fighting for. It's not just what we're fighting against, it's what we're fighting for. And I believe that we need real leadership, whoever that is, whoever will step up to the plate, who will say that we're going to make sure that we're going to bring the kind of leadership where people will stand up, fight for what's right, and remind people why Democrats are the party that is standing for working people.
All right, Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, thank you very much for being with us.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.